Hello and welcome to the first video for the stats analysis in the Premier League. And in today's video, I will be discussing Brighton's 3-0 victory away at Watford in the opening weekend of this new season of the Premier League. In one of the standout games of the opening round of fixtures in the Premier League, Brighton won 3-0 versus Watford thanks to an own goal from Abdoulaye Doucouré and two second-half goals from substitutes Andone and Mopai. Now time for some quick fire facts. This was Brighton's first win at Vicarage Road since September 2012 when they won 1-0, which in the process ended a run of 4 league games without a win for Brighton. It was also Brighton's biggest opening day victory since 1999 when they beat Mansfield 6-0 in the old Division 4. This was also Watford's heaviest opening day defeat since 2001 when they lost 3-0 to Man City in the second tier. This was Brighton's first win in the Premier League for 10 games since they last won against Crystal Palace in March. Finally, this was Watford's third consecutive home league defeat, and this is the first time that this has happened since December 2013 for Watford, and that was when they went 5 consecutive defeats in the Championship. So after 5 seasons and only narrowly avoiding relegation last season, Chris Hughton was sacked by the Brighton board. He was a very defensive-minded manager, really focused on organisation without the ball. In fact, under Hughton, Brighton had the 4th lowest possession in the Premier League last season. But since being sacked, Graham Potter has been appointed as the new manager of Brighton, and this really signals a major change in direction for the club. We've seen at his time at Swansea and also at Östersunds that he does enjoy possession-based football and fluidity in team structure. In fact, in the game against Watford on the weekend, Brighton registered 52% possession and also 442 passes, which is a tally more than half of Premier League teams managed from all of the game week 1 fixtures. Just to delve more into how flexible he is tactically, when Potter was at Swansea last season, he started with 10 different formations, which is more than any other Championship club. Potter also encourages his sides to play out from the back. He really has an emphasis on play starting from the goalkeeper. In fact, 31 passes and 44 touches were registered by Matt Ryan, which was the 3rd highest in both of those categories out of all the Premier League goalkeepers from game week 1. Just to add on to his philosophy of playing out from the back, Potter's Swansea made more passes than any other Championship team last season. Finally, one of the other features of Potter's teams is that he likes to use attacking wing-backs to join into the attacking phase of the game. I will demonstrate this in a minute. So if we just look at the team that was fielded by Potter for the game against Watford at the weekend, you can see that 3 centre-backs were used with Montoya and March as wing-backs, and then with an attacking lineup of Murray in front of the wider sitting Locadia and Gross. March and Montoya were well positioned to help with defensive situations, but they were also able to get forward and join in with the attack when needed. We can see here Montoya from his heat map that a lot of his game was spent in either half, demonstrating how he contributed to both defence and attack. And again here with March, very similar to Montoya, getting forward as often as he could. And just to sort of emphasise the difference in the Brighton team this season compared to under Hughton. Under Hughton, Brighton would usually play with a flat back 4, and he usually chose to play Bruno at right back and Gaëtan Bong at left back, and they were both 2 very defensively minded fullbacks who rarely ventured across the halfway line. Also, under Hughton, March was used primarily as a right winger. In this game against Watford under Potter, he's been moved all the way to left wing back, which is quite a drastic change for a player, but he did perform very well in this position. So if we just discuss how the first 2 goals were scored for Brighton in this game, we can see that they did have a lot of players going forward for these attacks, just showing their positive attacking intent. It just shows a lot of positivity in the side. The first goal came about from an own goal from Doucouré after Gross putting in a very teasing ball, which was aimed for Murray, who would have had a tap-in had Doucouré not got that touch in the first place. And the second goal actually came from a rather similar situation with Proper crossing in a ball to Andone, who again was positioned at the front post and managed to get a tap in just to creep past Ben Foster in the Watford goal. We just look at some key stats from this game on the weekend, and we can compare the stats from Watford's 3-0 loss to Brighton compared to 12 months ago when Watford actually faced Brighton on the opening day of last season, and Watford were victorious on that occasion with a 2-0 win. If we can just compare the key stats for both of those games, you can see that Brighton have improved all across the board in terms of touches, passes, possession, tackles, and fouls conceded. This really shows Potter's philosophies have already been implemented and demonstrates their intent to play more positive brand of football. At the bottom here we can see the average stats per game for Brighton from last season, and if we compare this to the stats from the weekend's game, again there's been a major improvement under Potter and there's much more positive signs to take away here. So, looking ahead, Brighton will be playing against West Ham at the Amex Stadium on the 17th of August. But there is some questions that the Brighton staff will be asking themselves. One of those questions is who starts in attack? In the game against Watford, Glenn Murray and Jurgen Locadia started. Both of them were substituted in the second half, and both of those players that came on, Neil Maupay and Florian Andone, both got on the score sheet. So Glenn Murray is probably likely to start. He had scored 13 goals in 38 Premier League appearances last season, which is a very good return for a team that finished 17th in the league. In fact, Murray has scored in both of West Ham's last 2 visits to the Amex Stadium. He scored in a 3-1 win in February 2018, and he got the only goal in the victory in October 2018. How about the new big money signing, Neil Maupay, who arrived from Brentford? He scored 25 goals for them in 43 Championship appearances last season. That was an average of 1 goal in every 149 minutes. So he is a very prolific striker, and in fact he scored from the bench versus Watford. Jurgen Locadia only scored 2 goals in 26 Premier League appearances last season, not a very good return. Lastly, Florian Andone, again, wasn't very prolific in the Premier League last season with only 3 goals in 23 Premier League appearances. However, he did score straight from the bench when he came on against Watford on the weekend. So, will Potter continue his magic with Brighton this season? There are signs that they could be a surprise package this season. Give me your opinions in the comments below. I would love to find out what you think.